Hello and welcome to EPR with your favorite environmental nerds, Nic and Laura. On today's episode, Nic and I talk about how my trip to Costa Rica is going. We interview Mason Miller, David Buzan, and Aaron Petty to talk all things mussels. And finally, mussels have beards, which makes them the original hipsters. They're also known as Bissell threads and are used to anchor mussels to substrates, which keep them from floating away underwater. They are also being recognized as superior bonding agents, with several studies investigating mussels as glues for industrial and surgical applications. Lastly, Bissell threads have provided insights into construction of artificial tendons. I think I've heard that before. That's pretty cool. Hit that music.
PAEP, that is the Pennsylvania Association of Environmental Professionals, is hosting a webinar on Thursday, February 15th at noon Eastern about evaluating ecological risk under Pennsylvania's land recycling program. Pennsylvania's land recycling program, or Act 2, encourages the cleanup and reuse of contaminated commercial and industrial sites across the state. This presentation will discuss the process of identifying and evaluating potential impacts to ecological receptors at sites in the Act 2 program.
Awesome. And now it's time for 30 seconds of sponsor fun with Nic. Ready?
All right. Yeah, I'm ready. Let's do it. Okay. Laura, when you have seafood, right? And since, it's a seafood themed episode, I figured we'd promote a product that really exemplifies that, right? You kind of like, if it leaves out, you have it as this nasty smell, and this is going really poorly. But anyways, if you don't, it smells really bad, right? We love seafood, but after a while it smells terrible. Now, if you do like that smell though, I have a product for you. It's called fish sauce. Only not the kind you use in cooking. It's actually the kind that you spray, kind of like an aerosol can. But it's just that smell. It's the smell of seafood out everywhere. It smells really, really powerful, I think is the right word. So if you miss it, if you're lonely and you're like, I wish I still had seafood smell. Dang it. Terrible. That was bad.
That was like the first one you ever really went over. Maybe other one.
No, that was so bad. Like I'm afraid to even put that out there.
Yeah. You went a little Porky Pig on that one.
What's that?
Are we calling that one fish smell? What?
No, fish sauce is what I call it. That was terrible. I don't like that. I think we should redo it.
Yeah.
No, you can't. Okay.
Well, if I can't redo it,
you can't redo it. You have to deal with your bad segment.
Yeah,
right.
Okay,
bad
right.
Shout out.
All right, there it is.
And folks, this is why we need. And folks, this is why we need sponsors. If you would like to fill the spot with something sensical, please reach out to us at info@environmentalprofessionalsradio.com.
Yeah. My brain melted, and I feel like my brain melt just transferred to you. That's what just happened there. That was that.
It did. Except mine came out less like Porky Pig than yours did.
Yeah, I am devastated by that. It's gonna stay with me for like the rest of the day. And Sam, don't you cut any of this out. Like, we've got to keep this all in here. Like,
yep.
Oh, that's gonna hurt. Yeah. You can't win them all.
Nope. But the point is, you tried.
Oh gosh, let's get to our segment,
please.
I don't know. Like, we didn't even talk about this, right? You're in Costa Rica. We didn't talk about this at all. So I don't know. Like, where are you?
I'm in Playa Bejuco,
which is West Coast, right?
West Coast, like 30 minutes south of Jaco. Most people kind of have an idea where Jaco is.
Yeah, I have no clue.
It's like it's kind of directly west of San Jose.
Okay, well, that's cool. So you're in Puerto Rico. Geez, listen to me. Costa Rica. I've been to Puerto Rico. I've never been. I've always wanted to go. What do you like about it?
Oh, it's amazing. Costa Rica is like, obviously it's beautiful and tropical, but then there's also mountains. So in a day you could be on the beach and then also, climb a volcano, be in rainforest. It's this place that I'm staying is in like eco property. So it's pretty cool. It's storage container, which is awesome. And
what does that mean?
It's like, like a cargo ship, like a storage thing, like a pod.
Yeah.
But it's, converted into an apartment.
Right.
It's pretty cool. And I actually have like that plus above it is a whole patio with hammocks. And then there's this big, huge patio that I'm sitting on now. That's for like community space. It's got a couple of couches, space for yoga, but nobody comes up here. So this is my office. Like, I'm sitting here working. It's amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, if you hear any background noise, that's currently the caretaker doing leaf blowing the property.
Yeah, every time we do it. Yeah. I mean, I can't.
But monkeys come through here all the time. So capuchin monkeys come like every other day, and they jump down to the banana trees that are right there, and you can literally be standing 10 feet away from them, and they're just like grabbing bananas off the trees.
Yeah, wow.
And eating them in front of you. It's adorable.
That's funny. Yeah. Never trust a
monkey.
Those are the rules.
Right? Yeah, I'm not trying to get too close.
Yeah.
This family that was here, their little kid was like getting closer and closer, and I was like, "It's your kid, whatever."
Yeah, it's like, please, yeah.
But I walked up to, there's a little town, teeny tiny town up here. And I walked over there the other day to get groceries, and a scarlet macaw flew like 20 feet over my head.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay. So okay. So you're at a place where, do you need to make your own food then? Are you kind of like,
I'm on a work retreat. So I'm just like, I go to walk the beach in the morning. I come back, I eat breakfast, exercise. And then I've been trying to like up my TikTok and my video game. So like I'm actually have made the time to have that extra time to do that. And most of the time I'm making my own food. I'm trying to just eat out like every couple of days, maybe. Right, there's a little local sodas are like a little off the street, just pop in restaurant thing. There's one right up the street, and they're super friendly. And that's a place where I ordered the vegetarian burrito, and
nice.
They've got smoothies. So I just get a burrito and a smoothie, and I'm in my elements. I'm super happy.
Yeah. What else do you need really for being 100%?
Yeah, exactly. So that's it. That's my days every day for like the last, what's really sad though, is me and math don't mix. And I literally, for some reason, thought I was going to be here for 3 weeks. I'm only here for like 2.5. So I've gypped myself. I'm like, wait, I'm leaving already?
Yeah. I know. It's tricky because like you'll be, it's whenever you travel, you're gone for 14 days, quote unquote, but like 2 of them are travel.
Yeah.
And it's just like, that is not fun. There is no part of that is like, I'm having a great time waiting, 3 hours to get through this line, Yeah.
Yeah. So this has been a great place to just, I'm eliminating distractions and just focusing on working. This 2024. I've got 2 companies that need to march forward this year, and spending time working on like, we got a ton of new guests for the podcast. So I have found time to do that, which is awesome.
Yeah. It's really cool. I mean, gosh, the lineup's really full, and that's awesome. I love that. So like I say, I guess that's great to hear that you're having a good time. And I'm jealous. So let's end this now so I don't get more jealous. How about that? And let's get to our interview.
Welcome back to EPR. Today we have Mason Miller, AmaTerra Environmental and Environmental Research Group's Vice President of Innovation and Technology, David Buzan, Aquatic Biologist, and Aaron Petty on the show. Welcome, guys.
Thank you very much for having us.
Let's start off by at least having each of you speak, because I know when I've listened to other podcasts and there's multiple people, I'm like, who is talking right now? So if let's start with you, Mason, just a couple of words on you and what you do. And then each one of you start with your name. So when people are listening, they kind of identify you, and then we'll move on.
Sure thing. Yeah. Hi, everybody. My name is Mason Miller. I am an archaeologist by training. I'm with Environmental Research Group and AmaTerra, and I've had the opportunity to work with Aaron and Dave over the years, actually participating in underwater work, working on freshwater mussel surveys. So that's kind of how I come into this conversation.
My name's Dave Buzan. I'm a biologist with Friesen Nichols here in Austin, Texas. So I've worked in water, freshwater, and coastal waters of Texas for my career here.
And last but not least, I'm Aaron Petty, co-office with Dave there in Austin, Texas, and also a biologist working for Friesen Nichols. Love working in streams in the estuarine environment, and excited to talk about mussels today.
Very cool. Ooh, we got friends in Austin, Nick. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great place.
Best thing about this podcast.
Right.
So tell us, a little bit about that work that you're doing with mussels, and how did you guys, how long have you been doing it? How'd you get together?
Yeah, I'll start with that. This is Mason. So for a long time there, I'm a by training, I'm an underwater archaeologist. I went to graduate school and studied underwater archaeology, so I have a lot of diving experience. And so with my company, with AmaTerra, we would provide we had a biological contract with the Texas Department of Transportation, and they started asking us to do underwater freshwater mussel surveys for bridge replacement projects for TxDOT, where we would go out and do studies of water bodies that are where bridges are going across to ensure that endangered species aren't being impacted from the construction. And we needed a diver to go do those. So I would go out and help with Freeze and Nichols, with Dave and Aaron, who were our sub-consultants and our team partners on those types of projects. And so it's a bit weird that I, as an archaeologist who have no biological experience at all, would go out and help out on these mussel surveys. And so it's probably been like, I don't know, Dave and Aaron, like 4 or 5 years, something like that we've been doing them. So yeah, it's been a lot of just going to these random little waterways all across the state and just going around and wading into the water or diving in there and just scraping around with your hands and finding mussels and counting them and relocating them. And that's kind of how it's worked.
What kind of mussels are these?
I guess that's a question for Dave or Aaron.
Yeah, these are freshwater mussels. They're native to the state, not the type of coastal mussels that people think about eating. These live on the bottom in the mud, and they're filter feeders like coastal mussels are. But part of the reason we got started in this was in 2009, the state listed 15 of the 52 species in Texas that are mussels in Texas as threatened or endangered. So when that happened, it really kicked off the need to do mussel surveys and try to understand what was going on with mussels in Texas.
So is there like an overarching pattern that you guys have seen? What are the trends with mussels? And Dave, we'll start with you, but if anyone else wants to jump in, please do.
Well, I'd say we're still learning. There's a lot to learn about where these different mussels live within the streams and where their abundance is. And part of what Mason's alluding to is that when we started this collaboration in order to help Texas Department of Transportation, there was not a lot of data about mussels and their distributions of different species around the state. So over the last 5 to 6 years, we and other companies have really been growing that knowledge base and learning a lot.
Yeah, it's very cool. And it's like one of those things I'm asking too, because I know I've even started to see data come in for projects that we have in Texas for our group. And, one of the ones we have is literally, we are, 1,000 feet downstream of a listed mussel, but it's 1,000 feet downstream. So we're like, ooh, okay. But I guess when you're putting this all in, this is all going to is it TxDOT, their database, and that's freely accessible to the public?
It's actually more going to Texas Parks and Wildlife, and Texas Parks and Wildlife is developing the database. Certainly, TxDOT is accumulating the data, and a lot of the data, and Aaron may know more about this than we do, is going into a website called Mussels of Texas, and they're really trying to accumulate the distribution data about mussels.
Yeah, so Aaron, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah. So as Dave mentioned, the Mussels of Texas website is a great resource. Certainly one that when we give in talks or poster sessions for this subject, we always link people to. But I think the other resource would be just what they call, before we kill everyone with acronyms, TXNDD, which is a Texas Natural Diversity Database. And so I think, as Dave alluded to, the struggle has been also to not only list occurrences and geographic, locations of, T&E species that may be listed in some way, but also the common species. And so I think we're moving more towards, in previous starting out, where we were only giving coordinates and locations of things when we found something that was listed, versus now there's much more of a focus on really anything so that we can include the whole assemblage. And then ultimately, as an environmental practitioner, you have the ability to go there on the TXNDD state website and download that data in a spatial format to use in any of your projects.
Right. Yep. And I have done that. That's
Yeah.
really cool. That's really cool. And like I say, I'm nerding out a little bit here because like I say, I have to know some of this. One thing that people really should do is look up the names of some of these species because they're incredible. Like there's a Texas split heel, and they're like, oh, it's called that because of what it can do if you do step on it. And it's like, I don't know if you all have a favorite mussel, but I kind of want to ask: is there like a one that you kind of all gravitate towards, or not?
It's funny that you kind of pinged on that because literally, as I started working on these mussel surveys, that was immediately the thing that I gravitated to was all of the super. I don't know why mussels have these completely bizarre names that are just so endearing in a way.
Right.
Yeah, I think, and I've often cited it, but there's like blue fur, I think is one of the good ones, or there's fat muckets, Louisiana fat muckets. My personal favorite is the Rio Grande monkey face, which is, and when I heard somebody mention that, which is unfortunately, it might be extinct, right, Dave?
Yes.
It might be extinct. So unfortunately, it might not be there. But when I heard somebody mention Rio Grande monkey face, I literally went, that's not real.
Yeah. Oh, man. All right. So, Dave, you got to have a favorite one too, right? Is there another name you want to toss out for us?
Yeah, I think the one that I like best is Sandbank Pocketbook.
Yeah.
That is really good.
Yeah.
Aaron?
That's a good one, Dave. I also really like Rock Pocketbook. And then I guess I'll add a second, and that would be the Brazos Heel Splitter.
Yeah.
So those are some of my two favorites.
Yeah, that's incredible. Heel splitters for me. Yeah.
I've been walking the beach here. I've been walking the beach here in Costa Rica every day, and I will never look at these mussels the same.
Oh my gosh. Too funny.
I'm going to be like, you're called the monkey face, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Let's give it my own name.
Watch, yeah.
And I was just hand delivered a coconut, by the way. So
hey, look at that!
Wow.
Keep bragging.
That's real too.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
neat. Okay.
I don't know how to say I'm on a podcast in Spanish.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how you do that.
You should just have them lean in and say hi. I think.
Yeah, right.
I know, right?
Or hola, I guess, in Costa Rica.
Right. Yeah.
You know.
Well, that's too fun. So, okay. So are you guys all divers? Like when you get a project, you're like, okay, let's get the gear, let's go. Is it that simple? Is there anything that I guess how challenging is it to kind of start ramping this thing up when you get a new site?
Oh man, yes, Dave and Aaron and I are all divers. And it's funny when this, as Dave was kind of mentioning, how this whole effort, this whole initiative kind of started ramping up. We kind of all learned as we went how to really get ourselves set up, how to conduct these surveys. And so in some of those initial projects, it was fairly rudimentary, and the systems that we were using to kind of control ourselves within the water bodies were a fairly simple setup. And we've gotten, up to full face mask and all different kinds of really more advanced equipment over the years, just from learning how to do it better. It is always still a bit of an effort to get things going with any new location, because a lot of it has to do with going out to the site and getting all your equipment down to a spot can be really tough, because these are at least essentially almost all of the projects we've done have been roadway related. So there's going to be, parking off of outside of the right of way and lowering all the equipment down what could be really difficult part, riprap and getting down into the water is always really tough. Yeah, each time it's always just sort of its own unique animal, I suppose. Over the course of a season, you get fairly good at it. You keep all your stuff right in front of you, but each one is always like okay, what are we going to be up against when we get there, sort of a thing.
Right.
It's not technologically complicated. And, one of the questions we deal with is, do we wear gloves or not wear gloves? But in terms of can we just get the gear and go out, I think Aaron has managed some of the most complicated mussel recoveries, which we've done, and we've done this year. So it may be good for Aaron to give a little bit of background about what goes into actually preparing and getting approval to do a survey.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I can talk on that a little bit. I think maybe the next technological addition may be just a mule team to take us up and down the banks in the future, because that is half the battle sometimes, is just physically moving, all the gear from your work truck, down to the shoreline. And, you can have really, really steep cut banks that can make that challenging. Yeah. So mobilization is always one of the key things. Are we going to access the site by foot? Are we going to have to use a vessel? We've had some surveys increasingly where we have deeper water and we have to use vessel support, not only, maybe kayaks, but, a John boat or even a 20-foot bay boat or something to support divers and to have the appropriate safety gear nearby. But each project is unique. Sometimes we can think we're going to dive and we show up and the water's lower and we never have to get our gear on. That's always nice when you can just do a survey, completely by waiting. But then, anytime you have a survey that has a really high scuba component, diver orientation is a challenge. Cold water, keeping people warm, and then, typically using weighted lines stretched along the bottom so that the divers can orient themselves in the area that they need to be working in. So
because visibility, it's Texas. We don't really have crystal clear water anywhere that we work in. And so pretty much it's essentially, once you get under the water, it's essentially zero visibility the entire time.
Oh my gosh,
so keeping yourself oriented is a pretty tough task. And so having those weighted lines and having set increments along that line that are, a set distance apart helps keep our control in place as we're working. But yeah, it's all by feel. So that adds sort of some complexity to the work that we're doing.
Oh gosh. So, okay. Like, how do you even count then? You're just like, well, let's see, that's 1, that's 2, that's 3.
Yeah. I mean, are you counting? Yeah. Are you counting or using like an extrapolation method, or like, how do you know when you're done?
That looks like 10 even though you can't see it. Yeah.
Yeah, Dave, you can start talking about phase ones if you want. We can kind of go down that line.
I think one of the things, for example, we did a survey on the Brazos River below Waco, which Aaron designed. So we had to do 37 transects every 10 meters down the river to cover what the state and the feds consider a buffer zone and the area of direct impact within that buffer zone. So we did 37 transects across a river that's about 250 feet wide. So you start to understand why you need that weighted line stretched from bank to bank. Zero visibility. The only way you're going to get on that transect is if you can keep in touch with that line. The protocols also require us to keep track of how many mussels we collect in every 5-meter reach of that transect. So from one perspective, none of us like to do these surveys when we only find a few mussels. I mean, you go out there, you really want to find mussels. On the other hand, if you're doing 20 segments across a transect, you really don't want to find 1,000 mussels. Because you're going to be popping up and down saying, we got 20. Fortunately, the survey that Aaron coordinated, we would have 5-meter segments without a mussel. Then we'd have a 5-meter segment where we'd pop up, we've got 2 mussels, a Tampico pearly mussel, a pimpleback, and then go back down.
Or a Lilliput or whatever.
Yeah.
And I would just add in to answer, your question directly. We collect them. We have like a little diver bag, and we just literally, as we're scraping along in the, you just sort of do it with, for those who are watching, you just sort of drive your fingers into the mud, and you just sort of scrape around like you rake. And then when you find one, you put it in your bag and you keep on going through your segment. And then those are all kept off to the side throughout the rest of the survey. And then we do like a big Dave usually does the big inventory while we're doing kind of wrap up stuff, but you count them, literally every one that you find. Yeah.
Count them, measure them.
You're digging your hands in the mud in the dark. I'm terrified. I'm like, I'm not signing up for this.
Reaching under logs, all those sorts of things.
No.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
No.
This is a horror movie.
Yeah, we've seen this. Yeah.
Have you ever found something odd that way?
Well, okay, here's my favorite. One of my favorite episodes was we were doing a survey on a small stream in kind of East Texas. And we did reconnaissance on the stream the week before, and it turned out there was a dead feral hog that somebody had dumped in the creek.
Oh, gosh.
And as we were looking at the creek, we were looking at this dead feral hog, and it was an adult hog. And all of a sudden, we realized that there was this alligator snapping turtle next to the hog, and it was huge.
Yeah.
And I said right there and then, we're not sticking our hands under any logs.
Nope.
We're not going anywhere deep.
Yeah.
But my favorite part of that was when we did the survey the next week. For some reason, we thought we needed to sample underneath the dead hog. And Mason,
we were coming back. We thought we were going to have to come back the next week, if I remember right. Yeah.
Oh, that's so funny.
Mason was gagging.
So that was probably the funniest instance from this film, and certainly the grossest. So Dave and I went down. I kind of put my big boy pants on, shall we say, and I was like, okay, well, if we're going to have to come back, we got to do something with this dead hog. And it was huge. It might as well have been 5,000 pounds. It wasn't.
Right.
It was gigantic. So we went down to the channel, and Dave, who has just a granite constitution, I would just say. He's fine. He's like, we brought a rope and we tied it around its legs and tried to extract it, and it was not going anywhere. But then Dave, as we pulled, Dave just kind of looked and said, oh, look at that. And it had sort of opened up and started to ooze out into the water.
Oh, there you go. You asked,
so
why did I ask? I don't know why I asked. I was not expecting this.
And I dropped the rope and sprinted out of there because the smell was so horrific. And Dave is just down there laughing, and everybody up on the bridge is looking down at us and laughing, and I'm just, oh God.
Oh, that's too funny. Oh.
Well, that's it. I'm done. I have no more questions.
Yeah, right. But no, it's funny. We do a thing on the show. We call it field notes, where we'd like to ask our guests to tell memorable stories of themselves being in the field. That's a pretty good one.
That was by far. Everybody was laughing so hard that there were tears in their eyes. I feel like my tears in my eyes were more just from, pure panic.
Right.
But it was amazing.
You're like, no, my tears are not from vomiting. They're just from laughing. That's all.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It was awful. It was just like, and Dave, it's amazing that Dave is just, he was totally unfazed by it. Or at least I couldn't tell.
Right. That was
funny. Totally distracted by your gagging.
There you go.
Yes.
Oh, man. Did someone record this by any chance? There isn't evidence of it, is there? Because that would be...
No, I don't think so.
All right.
I wish, in hindsight, I wish somebody had, because that would have been funny, but no.
That's too bad. But it's funny because kind of one of the East Coast things here is like to go clamming. That's like a common thing happens. People go do that. And I remember doing this once, and it's my first time doing it. I'm wearing I have a UV shirt on. I'm like really prepared. I know that the sun's bad, right? Covered in sunscreen, doing all these things right. And then I forgot that I was on my hands and knees for 4 hours, and my shirt lifted up between my bathing suit. So I had this Nike swoosh on my back for 6 months. It's just this deep purple sunburn, So you guys, do you have there's got to be some kind of wild stories like that. You have to have some other kinds of, maybe there's no wild hog, but there's got to be another memorable moment kind of like that. Something like that.
Another one that comes to mind is when we did the Buffalo. What was it? Buffalo Bayou? I can't remember the name of the waterway.
Hildebrand, maybe?
The Hildebrand, just north of Houston, or north of Beaumont, I think it was.
Yeah.
Where we went out and did this. This is one of our earlier ones, but we all worked together on a bridge, some bridge work, and a new boat ramp, where we did this great survey, lots of recovery, lots of big ones. I remember that, really big mussels out of that. I don't remember what was the variety of those. Do you remember? Were those bloofers?
Oh, I
Just make
think
something up,
you
yeah.
may be. If you're talking about Harvey, if this is where the story's going,
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
that was Pine Island Bayou.
Pine Island Bayou.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we did all this huge, this massive work with lots and lots and lots of mussel recovery, wrapped up everything, and we were starting to get weather reports about this hurricane's coming. We're going to be, or at least tropical storm. I can't remember exactly, and this bridge was easily 20 feet above our heads, maybe a lot higher than that, maybe 30. And we just kind of did we wrapped up everything. We could see that this storm was coming, and we just kind of relocated all the mussels and see you later, headed back to Austin. And then I guess it was a full-on hurricane hit and just absolutely dumped a ton of water in the region. And the district sent us pictures of the exact same survey location, and water was overtopping the bridge that we were working underneath.
Whoa.
Oh my gosh.
And so all of our mussels washed away, I'm sure, farther downstream.
Yeah.
Just relocated.
Right. Yeah, you had a brilliant plan. Yeah. Nature had other plans too.
2017, the infamous Hurricane Harvey, for those that were in Houston at the time. That's what it was. Bad for some of those surrounding areas as well.
It was such I guess in a way, kind of a poignant example of how much water you really are dealing with, and the scale and the scope of this sort of environmental event. That just this, if you were to see pictures, we were so far below, and to see just this one place where it was so much water just running through this one waterway, it was pretty impressive, pretty amazing. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, it is amazing. It is truly amazing how powerful water can be. And people always kind of take that for granted. They're like, oh, it's like, it can't be that deep. I'm sure my car will get through this. And those are the videos you see, it's like, there they go,
There it goes. Yeah, exactly. And I think, one of the great things about doing this work, and I would just say, for me, as an archaeologist and as a cultural resource specialist, working with a bunch of biologists doing this type of project is, when you're doing these, and Aaron mentioned how that we don't always have to dive on these types of projects. When you're diving, you can't talk to anybody. You're just there by yourself. But when you're working and you're on a wading survey work, you just kind of talk while you're sitting there feeling around in the ground during your survey intervals. And we have really had the chance to talk about the work that I do as an archaeologist. And they didn't know, when we started working, they didn't know that we actually study mussels in archaeological excavations, because people have been harvesting them and using them for food and for tools and for grinding them up and putting them into clay for ceramics. So, mussels are very much a part of the archaeological record, and they didn't really know that. And so we also use them a lot to interpret and analyze environmental conditions around a site, because they have a really critical role in filtering water, and they become sort of indicators for the environmental conditions. So, over time, as we've kind of worked together, we've really learned a lot. Like shortly afterward, I started to know the types of varieties of mussels that are in these archaeological reports that we're working on, or if we send excavation faunal material, so bone and that sort of a thing, off to specialists, they provide their interpretations and send them back. And I started to recognize that some of those interpretations weren't accurate of their preferred conditions. And I won't name any names or anything like that. But there was one interpretation where a certain variety, the description was that they preferred clean, swift-moving water. And therefore, you kind of base, well, then that means the people who were living here were probably harvesting them from clean, swift-moving water. And that particular variety, I had just harvested hundreds of them out of a canal in Beaumont, where the water is just sitting there very slowly. It's all stagnant, very muddy. And talking to Dave and Aaron, they're saying, oh yeah, these are everywhere. And what was the term that y'all use? Like trash mussels or something like that? They thrive anywhere.
Hey, we would not say that.
Publicly.
Well, they thrive anyway. Oh, well, shoot, I shouldn't have said that. But anyway,
That's good.
They're everywhere. They don't really have a preference for that type of environmental conditions. So that affects the interpretations that we have for the archaeological resources. And so really that to me, out of all of my collaboration with these guys has been what's come out of it is just like the opportunity for these different disciplines, us working together and talking about what we do, how we can kind of collectively advance the work that we're doing. And that to me has been the biggest kind of insight from the survey work that we've done.
Yeah, that's awesome. I hope you guys will still be friends after this podcast. I think that's a great segue into my next question is because I'm really interested. I'm always very interested as an environmental career coach to hear people's backgrounds. And we try to talk about that a lot on the show so people can learn how to get into fields. And clearly one of the things that is evident from the three of you is that you're here working on the same project, but you have totally different educational backgrounds. So maybe each one of you, starting with Mason, talk about how did you get where you are? And then, that to me is just, this whole thing is an example for those people that are just starting out who are like, I don't know which career because it's not going to be perfect. There's no perfect. Like depending what projects you choose and where you go, like you may end up someplace you don't even expect. So, go ahead.
Yeah. So I got my start in cultural resources as almost a fallback. My dad was a pilot, and I had always thought my entire life that I was going to be a pilot in the Air Force. And I got to college at the University of Texas, fully expecting that I was going to join and I was going to be a pilot just like him. And they told me, you're too tall. Your seating height is too big. And so you wouldn't make we wouldn't be able to have you in flight training school. And in hindsight, I learned that I'm really terrible. I took some flying lessons and it was just not for me. So I needed sort of a fallback. And I really had always liked reading those books about the ancient Egyptians and learning about Neanderthals. And so I started taking some archaeology classes and really, really liked it. And I watched the movie The Deep with Nick Nolte, and it was back in the 70s, the same guy that wrote Jaws. And it's all about them actually studying a shipwreck. In this case, it was a shipwreck full of opium, but it's still relevant because I watched it and went, that's it. I want to study shipwrecks and I want to study archaeology that's related to the seafaring world. And I went off to graduate school at Texas A&M University and got a graduate degree in underwater archaeology and nautical archaeology. And then started my professional life as a contract archaeologist. I did a few projects with PBS&J, doing some underwater target investigations. And then honestly, I didn't have the right type of training to do a lot of underwater archaeology work. I didn't have a lot of experience with remote sensing, so magnetometers, side scan sonar, things like that. And I did a lot more terrestrial archaeological work, working with a lot of roadway projects, doing land-based excavations. And over time, I learned that, one of the areas that I was actually really good at was the public outreach and the public engagement parts of archaeology, like teaching people about the work that we're doing. I developed, websites for excavations with live webcams and things like that. I really, really liked that part. And I think I sort of developed a bit of a reputation for being somebody who really leans in on that part of archaeology. And over the years, I've kind of progressed and advanced and really harnessed that part of the work that I do. And I've been with my current employer for about 13 years now, and mostly doing terrestrial well, at this point, I don't do a lot of archaeology anymore. I'm mostly just sort of helping out around the office and keeping people out there working. But I think the great thing about working in cultural resources for me is just the variety of opportunities that you have to do so many different things that are related to this industry. And so I've really pinged on talking to people, teaching them about the work that we're doing, really using new technology and new techniques to really tell the story of the work that we're doing. That's kind of where I suppose really got my stride professionally, I suppose.
Yeah. And Dave?
I guess when I graduated from high school, I was pretty sure I wanted to be a game warden or a wildlife biologist. And I went to A&M. I took a wildlife biology class, and I immediately wondered, why in the world did I ever think I wanted to do this? But I also took in the following semester a freshwater ichthyology class, the study of fish, and I just fell in love with it. So that set me on a career. I got my bachelor's degree in fishery science from A&M in College Station. I went to what was at the time Southwest Texas State University in San Marcos.
Oh, yeah.
And did a plankton study on a local reservoir and got a master's degree. From there, I was extremely lucky to get a job at the State Water Agency in Texas, and that was in 1978. So I've been working in water for the State Water Agency, the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department, and now in consulting for 17 years. So I think part of what I think I heard you refer to, Laura, is that, we learn I think when somebody thinks about a career, they think about one particular job or one particular category of activity. And the reality is that we all, even though Aaron's a biologist like I am, and we work in the same place, we work on the same projects, there is a lot of difference and a lot of variation in what we do. And we're not in a world where everybody does the same thing. And if you say I'm a biologist,
oh, right. Yeah.
Somebody may have a concept of what that means, but it could be thousands of different tasks and jobs.
It's funny you say that. Like my friends, when I was getting my master's in biology, they all thought that meant I was a doctor. I'm like, that's not the same thing. That's like, is this cancer? I'm like, I have no idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Aaron?
I guess I'll go. I've always been an outdoors kid. I think most of us sort of know what that means. I had aspirations initially going to college at Texas Tech to be a physician. I sort of realized that wasn't for me. Got an undergraduate degree in biology. And after realizing I didn't really want to be a teacher, decided that probably grad school was the thing for me to at least sort of figure out what my opportunities were to specialize or to get into a different field. So I escaped the high desert in Lubbock and went to the College of Charleston in South Carolina, which was amazing, was a great school, and studied there, got my master's, was able to do research on shrimp immunology, work in a great lab. After I graduated, I also spent some time working for the state there doing oyster research. So sort of got my start there on bivalves with oysters, and then eventually made the move. The economy wasn't so great. This was 2008, 2009 timeframe, came back to Texas, and that's sort of when my consulting career began. So for the last 12 or some odd years, I've been working as a consultant for several different companies. I've been with Freeze now for about 8 years. And I think it's very much been saying yes to opportunities, allowing for specialization, whether it's mussels or oyster restoration, whenever those opportunities arise. And it's something that you have an opportunity to really grab onto and develop your skill set, taking that opportunity to do it. So I think that's sort of been the story of my career. I'll also say that Dave has been a mentor of mine and a colleague that I've learned a wealth of information from him and still hope to for as long as he's going to want to work for. So, yeah, don't want to underplay that. He's been an incredible role model to me for my career so far.
Yeah, those are all great answers. Now they're all a little bit different too. And it's kind of what we found, right? That there's lots of aspects, and people ask, like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And it's almost a silly question because you can't. It's almost, even in fact, where you were 5 years ago, you had no idea where you would be.
I think that's one of the strangest things about getting into consulting was that you have no idea the breadth and the variety of the types of roles that people fill in this industry and environmental and cultural resources. And you learn over time professionally that you have so many different avenues that you can take and so many different ways, and decisions that you make in your professional life that seem sort of innocuous and just sort of, what the heck, I'll go ahead and I'll try to make a website for you. Sure.
Yeah. Right.
And then it turns into this thing that lights some kind of a spark. And you have, when you're working alongside a lot of different environmental disciplines, you just really can touch on so many different routes and paths to advance in your own career, and just ways to, the best way that I always like to think of it is like, you have so many opportunities to mentally stretch your legs, because there's always something in there that's sort of a little bit unique, a little bit novel, that can make you go, oh, this is neat. Let me build on what I've already known, but in a new way. And that has kind of helped me and helped Dave and helped Aaron just kind of keep moving forward and learning new things and trying new things.
Oh yeah, 100%. And that's, I don't know, it's the joy of working almost is the unknown in some ways. But like I say, I know we're getting closer to our time. I guess actually there's two things I wanted to get to before we let you guys go. First of all, how many times have you heard the joke about like, oh, you work with mussels and someone pretends it's the other mussels? Does that come up a lot, or is that
all the time?
Yeah. For the first few times that we went out on surveys, I will readily admit that, and it probably went on for, I don't know, like a year, where each time we would arrive, I would have to say, I don't know what we're looking for. They're all right here.
I got one there. Right.
And we did. So Dave and Aaron and I worked together on a paper that we presented for the Texas Department of Transportation. And I had this lightning bolt of a title that I don't think I will ever replicate in the rest of my career and my life, where it just hit me that we should call this muscle memory. And it was, and it's just about archaeology, the data from biological studies for mussel surveys and archaeological studies, and how they can kind of complement each other. And I went, muscle memory. Oh my God, that's it. And I stopped and I wrote it down on a piece of paper.
And you're like, I'm retiring. That was it. I can't do any better than this. Yeah, right.
Mic drop. I'm out.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Nick, did you
lots of muscle puns?
Yeah, I mean, I would. Oh man, don't take me out with you. Just, I'm telling you now, don't do it.
Well, you guys, I think you guys could do a whole episode on dad jokes. Let's not go there.
Yeah, exactly.
I would love that. We should do that. That would be great.
It would be really fun. But like the last thing, I guess I can kind of put a bow on our mussel talk here. When you guys are done, right, and you're like, okay, now the survey is over, we need to do a relocation. Like, how do you determine where these mussels will go, and how do you actually do it? And I don't know, Dave, if you want to kind of start with that, and then we'll wrap it all up.
I'm literally hearing them. We don't want to go. No.
Well, this may be appropriate for Aaron to respond to, because Aaron, he really he's led our effort on this over the last year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, okay. Well,
yeah.
I think something that we haven't talked about is that a lot of these surveys have phased approaches, and so the transect lines we talked about, oftentimes that's associated with the transect survey, where you're surveying and looking at the bottom in 5 meter increments, but it's only every 10 meters. So every 33 feet, you're running another transect line. You're characterizing what's on the bottom. And then what we have are called phase 2 triggers. So in a given 5 meter segment, if you have high species diversity, high numbers of mussels, basically 3 or more, that would be a phase 2 trigger, which then leads you to additional sampling methods to gather quarter meter quadrat data, looking at density. And then all these things sort of factor in trigger after trigger, which sort of has that Gantt chart of if this, then. And as you go down that chart, if you're hitting a trigger, if you're finding a listed species, state or federally proposed, then you're getting to higher methods that require something that's called a multiple pass depletion survey, which is literally multiple passes along the bottom 1 meter at a time. And if you have a large impact area with your buffers, that can mean a lot of bottom time. And so all those initial studies sort of factor in the level of relocation that's required. But yeah, the basics, as we mentioned a little bit earlier, we collect the mussels. They're kept in bags so that we can tell which segments they came from, and we can work them up by species, by length. If it's the time of year, we'll also look and see if some of the females are gravid, aka just holding glycidia ready to be released to the host fish. And then after we've collected them and sort of written down all the notes we need to on the data, we'll actually look typically upstream. That's usually what the agency prefers, is we'll look at least a minimum of 100 meters upstream for an adequate relocation site. And the relocation site parameters are based on adequate water quality, substrate. Mussels really exist in these micro habitats. And so you can have a large riverine system, but really when you're doing your survey, you find these hot spots.
Yeah.
And so during the relocation, they really want you to look at the substrate, look for similar hot spots so that you can relocate the mussels to a similar environment that they'll persist. And that's sort of the nuts and bolts of it.
That is very cool. And like I say, I know we are at time here, but we always like to give a moment to see if there's anything else that we missed that you guys want to talk about before we let you go.
Well, yeah, I'll start. I think, one of the things that has really been the great benefit of working with Aaron and Dave, and I sort of touched on it earlier, is just, and it's kind of unique to the industry that we work in, is the opportunity to work across different disciplines. And I feel that within this industry, it's a really great opportunity when you can work with other people on different types of discipline work, because you get to talk about the things that you do, because otherwise we tend to stay within these kind of professional silos where we archaeologists, we work archaeological projects, we do the same sort of thing, we deal with the same sorts of data. But when you have that outside perspective, we kind of learn something and we have an opportunity to interpret things better. And they also learn something as well, and their own work kind of benefits from it. So it's sort of a win-win situation. So within the industry, I think there's opportunities there to, I guess, try to work together more often and work across disciplines more often, because we all sort of really benefit from it as a result.
Two things. One is that we really enjoy working together and relationships. And when you're in the field, it could be 100 degrees
Yeah.
and very uncomfortable, like Aaron said, going up and down a steep bank. But we really enjoy being in the field together and working together. And that's key to just about anything that anybody does, is, do you enjoy doing it with other people? The other thing is that Mason talked a lot about kind of the archaeological perspective. And for us, working with Mason, it helps us understand for these mussels that are threatened and endangered, it raises the question for us, 1,000 years ago, were they abundant or were they rare 1,000 years ago?
Yeah.
And so just as there are questions from an archaeological perspective, it raises questions for us from a biological perspective. What was going on with these mussels that are considered so critical now? What was going on with them 500 years ago or 2,000 years ago?
Yeah, very, very cool.
Yeah, I guess the last thing that I'll add is just that mussels have been a lot of fun to work on in the last 7-8 years. Really enjoyed specializing in the work. It's really led us to have a lot of good times in the field. But I think the overarching lesson also is that, they are sort of a canary in the river system, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
and, sort of a harbinger for water quality, reservoir projects, things that sort of disrupt the natural pattern. And I think we're getting on board, but we're understanding that even water quality alone doesn't always explain our alterations fully. And so you have a lot of species that may be fine in a lake or lacustrine environment, but as soon as you disrupt and put up a dam, something that's used to flowing water isn't going to persist or do as well.
Right.
So I think that's a takeaway, is that how we alter our environment also affects these critters, which are often overlooked and not seen.
Very cool. Well, thank you everyone for your time. Where can people
thank
get in
you
touch
very
with you?
much. Yeah.
Of course. We're happy to have you on here. And if people have questions, they want to reach out to the team, what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, they can reach me through email at mason.miller@envrg.com. I'm also on LinkedIn. I don't remember what my LinkedIn URL is, but you can just find me. I'm an archaeologist on there.
Perfect. Very cool. Thank you all for hopping on, and we really enjoyed this.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
That's our show. Thank you, Mason and David and Aaron, for joining us today. Please be sure to check us out each and every Friday. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. Bye.
See you, everybody.